Good morning. I wanted to just record a real short video. Your first assignment in Blackboard is to look at the certifications for cybersecurity. And I hope that one of the things that you've done this last week is to take a look at your book and to read maybe the beginning parts of that book, explaining the chapters, and the preface of that book. Uh, a lot of students nowadays doesn't like to read, and I hope you're not one of them, because honestly, you're going to be losing a lot if you don't read. You cannot rely on people who you work with or instructors to be able to tell you everything that you need to know. If you don't read, the next guy's going to get a better job, I promise you, because he digs it out. Okay, so anyway, the first chapter of the book, I wanted to show you this organization. There's an international, but there's an Information System Security Association, and the book tells you if you're going to work in cybersecurity, that you might want to join that organization. Security didn't just start recently. If you look in chapter 1 at the history of security, you know that it started when the first networks were started back in 1969 and in the 70s. So this should be one of your bookmark sites. If your track is cybersecurity, this should be one of your bookmark sites, and I encourage you to pay attention to it as we go throughout the rest of the semester. They, like other all things computers, is they have a conference. And that conference is in the middle of October. So, generally speaking, they are not free. Oracle database conferences are one of the most expensive. Theirs for a week is almost $4,000. Microsoft SQL Server has one at the end of October, and that's what I teach, the database management track. Their week, actually 4 days, is $2,000, and I honestly haven't priced this because I don't plan to be the main teacher in cybersecurity, just one that does some of the beginning classes, but I'm going to look at it and see how much it is, and that's actually in Chicago. This organization is one that you'll want to pay close attention to. Now, our book talks about several things in that first chapter and then the preface. The guy who wrote the preface of the book says this is his favorite certification, the CRISP or KISP or however it's pronounced. One of the things that you see is generally there's lots of levels of certifications beginning at the bottom and going to the top, just as there's lots of levels there. See, there's a Certified Information Security Manager. So there's lots of levels. There's lots of different organizations that make these available. Generally speaking, they are not free. Now, I teach a lot of different things, and I advise my students is to go to work, then see how that company views this. Obviously, if you have one of these certifications before you go to work, then that's a plus. That should help you get hired. But once you get there, they may choose a different certification, or maybe they've got, a plan in place. So certifications do help. If you are employed, certifications are supposed to put dollars in your pocket. So the certifications are important in anything computers. Then I wanted to bring this to our attention. Part of this chapter 1 is about the security systems development life cycle and how that works. There's a history, there's dates on when important things happened, and then an explanation of what security is. The CIA triangle and those things that are important there, the characteristics. Then it comes the certifications in the book. And I thought I had looked them all up, and I guess I didn't. The NCSS security certification is one. So CISP is one, NCSS is one, and this one's actually been around a real long time. Then the components of an information system to be able to get us to that life cycle is people, obviously. And you'll look at some of the threats. People's a big part of those threats, whether they do it intentionally or not. If a employee doesn't back up the database and important data is lost, then that's a human error, So people sets the procedures in a company. Right, the procedures are a part of those, the better written and thought out to match that company. Hardware, networks, and software, of course, are important parts of the information system. And the data, of course, is one of a company's most important assets. So we've got those parts, and those are really good test questions. There's a lot of talk in this book as you go in this first chapter, and then as you go to the others, that talk about the balance between security and ease of use or ease of access, and that's important. So the systems development life cycle is investigation, analysis, logical design, physical design, implementation, and then maintenance and change as it's required, and there's always change required. So those are good test questions. Just kind of a review before we go forward. There is a part in the book that says good software designs, and it's talking about software developers that create software. And I know we've all seen examples. We've seen Obama's healthcare plan being put out and made go live when it was not nearly ready. If you take me for programming like C++ and Visual Basic, I'll try to show you the kinds of things that programmers can do to, in fact, hurt your network, maybe not meaning to, or as in the case of object-oriented programming and Visual Basic, how objects can be attacked by hackers or by code in a program, a virus, malware, whatever. Just remember I said this. If you don't remember a whole lot of things from my videos, remember that everything in computers and networks is an object. Each object in that network has its own unique name and its own unique properties and actions that it can do. I just did this in Visual Basic programming, trying to explain objects, but code is written with the object. Let's make that big so you guys can actually see it. Code is written with the object name, a dot, and the property that, and there's lots of properties, and then the value of that property. If I'm the object, mine would be Sandy, and Word's capitalizing that, and it should not be. Case does matter. Maybe my eyes, that object, the property. The properties are characteristics. My eyes are characteristics of myself, right? That's how object-oriented programming works. But if that actually happened to be a file, two things. Properties. Let me just copy this. Get a little ahead of myself this morning. Objects are either made up of properties or they're made up of something called a method or a task or an action that can do. And generally it's written like this. No, method. Let's see. The method is delete. Let's see. What do we want it to delete? Equals. Parentheses dot. All, meaning the asterisk dot JPEG. Let's do the little I love you virus. This line says they search out the object name, the method, equals .jpeg. So that might be on this computer, the name computer 1, delete, right, methods. So files, for example, can open and close. That's their method. So you can do a file name dot, delete that file. Right. So objects and methods. It's made up of objects, either the property, and you can just translate properties into characteristics, or they're made up of methods. And if you understand that concept, that's how viruses are written. So when the book talks about good software development, it means understanding object-oriented programming, but the things that it can do, and also that how it would actually work once it's released into a network, or how it actually works when hackers hack into that data in that database. So software design principles, and that begins on page 30, how they work, the putting them into place, and then the actual destruction of those when they're not needed anymore. So our book then in chapter 1 talks about the people and organizations that's responsible for the security as the very last thing. And then a little brief discussion on whether it's an art or a science, and it's actually both. Security is an art. It's something that becomes very personal when an IT person is responsible for creating that security. But it's also a science because there's rules and protocols put into place for that security. Those of you that in Cisco know that there's different levels of the Cisco model and the TCP/IP model, the hardware on the bottom and software, and how it all comes up. And what we like we have seen in database security is there's different levels that are done in if security is in place in every level, then it's going to be that much more secure. If you have anything else that you would like to say about chapter 1, I usually put in Blackboard a link in a forum in the discussion that allows us to discuss that particular chapter. I did want to do a wrap-up video, and I hope by now that you have completed that first assignment in the class and that you've looked at some of these sites that would be important to you if cybersecurity is your track. I'm just going to go ahead and record chapter 2, and then I try very hard to keep assignments graded, and I always check emails every day. I was a little bit lax this weekend because I actually went out of town on Friday, but generally speaking, I check emails Monday through Thursday in the class. Let me know if you need anything. Have a good rest of the day.